Hey, y'all, what's up? What's going on? Welcome back to this project. We are doing the Riverside Woodie, which is going to be called Wrong Turn. So, in today's episode, we are going to be focusing exclusively on the landscape. Anyone who's been watching my channel for any amount of time probably knows that that's one of my favorite things to do. When I'm working on a coaster or a project, I really enjoy doing the landscape, and it's something I think I'm pretty good at. So I have a few things in mind for this particular ride. I think that I've said several times that this ride I actually ended up riding in a dream I had. It had a very specific setting, and I'm trying to translate that into NoLimits too. So far, we're doing all right. I had a specific vision in mind for this turn up here. I really wanted it to be kind of on the ground with a little bit of an overhang right there that it goes around, sort of under. I don't think you would actually ever find that on a ride because it's pretty unsafe. But maybe it's just a little hillside right there. I could see like dirt or rocks falling on the track though, so who knows. But it does remind me of Boulder Dash, which is the setting on that coaster is absolutely my favorite setting on any coaster I've been on, especially when you're going up the lift hill. You're going way up the side of the mountain into the woods, and there's just like moss, and it's very verdant and green, and I just love it. And then you get to the top, and you're right on the ground. It just seems like you haven't gone anywhere, and you go around a nice little turn slowly. This one goes a little faster than that. But that's the sort of atmosphere I was going for at the top of this hill. So this is also tends to be something that I do when I'm designing the landscape for a coaster. I tend to, especially an out and back like this one, I think about different areas where the landscape will be a little bit different. So when you come up here into this turn, you come off the lift, you go around the turn, and you're very sort of closed in. And I don't want to say claustrophobic, but you're certainly closed in, and the trees are sort of hugging up around you, and you're very in the woods and so forth. So then you sort of burst out of it. You're very close to the ground too, and this is psychologically, this I find very interesting on this ride, is that you're very close to the ground. You've got the trees wrapping around you. Everything is very close to you, and then you come up here and you start to realize how high up you are, just a little bit. It's not totally like you're just hundreds of feet in the air, but everything opens up and you're kind of high up in the air, and then of course you go over the bump, and then you go down the main drop, which takes you all the way down to the little stream down at the bottom. So psychologically, I like the way this plays out up here. It's an interesting beginning to the ride, and I'm pretty pleased with it. So that's something to think about when you're doing coasters, how they, especially if you're really into landscaping like I am, just think about how the landscape can enhance what's going on, because that always makes a ride better, in my opinion. I think most people agree with that. They would much rather ride something, say Boulder Dash, for example, than something that just sort of runs along the parking lot or something like that. Just I certainly find that more appealing, and that's definitely something that adds to my appreciation of a ride. So it's what I tend to do in mine a lot as well. So with all that being said, excuse me, with all that being said, so you see we pretty much finished the top, and now we're going to start working on the drop down to the bottom and what that's going to look like. And again, I'm being very conscientious of what I choose here and what it looks like, and very careful with the placement of things and so forth. There are a few little things here that I'm not quite pleased with. I may go back and change. I'll show you that in a minute here. We'll get to that. But another thing that I did want to do first was just sort of shore up these beams right here, because they sort of span quite a distance. So I put an iron brace across the top there, just so it is a little more realistic. Excuse me. And then I added two braces here where the auto supports didn't put them in. And I did do a little quick tunnel test, because obviously it looks really close right there. But once I add these two beams in and I do the tunnel test, you can see it doesn't come through the tunnel. So it may look like it's very close, but it actually isn't. There's plenty of space through there. So we get to the bottom in here in a minute, and I start working on the riverbed. First, I'm going to put some trees up, and then one thing that when I was looking this over, the one thing that stood out in my mind was that in my dream, when I dreamed this ride, it was not so bright and vibrant. It was, I think the colors were more autumnal, so I'm going to start adding in some more fall foliage here, and I think that's appropriate given that here in the northern hemisphere at least we are entering into autumn, and the temperatures have just started to cool down here in the DC area. We've gotten into the 50s, the 40s at night. This was one of my favorite times of year. Autumn through winter I love. So I decided to actually just sort of put that palette in here. I also probably put, as we go along, I'll probably put some fallen trees and so forth, so it looks a little more desolate. Right now it looks very springtime to me, very springtime, summery. So I might just try to make it a little more autumnal because I find that interesting. So the riverbed, I am using a, what do you call it? I can't even think of the word. I'm using blah blah blah. What's it called? An image that I found online of just sort of river rocks that were under a river, and I made it seamless, and now I'm using it to fill this out because I like the way that looks. And then I'm using those new rocks that they added in No Limits 2, the sort of cluster of small rocks to sort of form the riverbed. And I'm really digging how that's turning out. I think it looks pretty good. Here, obviously, it needs to still be fixed up a little bit, but I think it'll really improve the appearance of the riverbed itself once we get up to that. And here's something else I'm doing here. I'm just doing little patches of grass. You'll see some come up here in just a moment. It took me a minute to get the object correct. So rather than doing the entire the map in the grass like that, I find it really looks more realistic if you just do little patches here and there, or I find I prefer that. I've seen people do the entire thing and the grass is waving and it looks nice. It looks okay, but I think really for me it looks better when you just do little patches here and there. And also obviously it saves on your processing speed. Things move a little faster, so that's one little trick I always like to give out. And then of course placing bushes here and there. These are N7's great bushes. This is the part right there, right around that tree is where I'm not happy with how those bushes look. It just looks kind of like a little, almost like an altar or something. I don't know. It looks right there. It looks weird to me. So I'm gonna fix that up. And I don't. The combination of that country grass and those bushes has been done to death. So I might take some of that out. I'm not 100% certain. I'm gonna stick with that. But overall, I am pleased with how this is turning out so far. I just need to make it a little more autumnal. I need to put some fallen trees around and so forth. Of course, I need to do the bunker and all that kind of thing. But I think it'll turn out well. So that's going to be about it for this, for my commentary this time. Next week at this time of, actually when I'm recording the video on a Sunday, I will be live at Dollywood next week. I'll do a little short live video, but that's going to be it for now. We'll leave you with some glamour shots. Take care and enjoy the ride.